Welcome to the Now. I'm Ashley Jenkins.
I'm Adam Kovic.
Good news, everybody. If you wanted to know why Hollywood movies shit the bed so much, it looks like we finally have a definitive answer.
Is it an over-reliance on reboots and pre-existing intellectual properties and an overall bankruptcy of creativity?
No, definitely not.
Of course not. No, it's over, or maybe it's over-bloated budgets and rising ticket prices?
No, also not that. It's actually Rotten Tomatoes, according to one Hollywood producer who says the movie critic aggregator is making things worse for everyone in the business.
Let's be clear about that. It's one very important Hollywood producer.
Very important.
Probably the most important. That was totally, actually, our next guest, because that makes all kinds of sense. This quote comes from the Sun Valley Film Festival, where director-producer Brett Ratner had some harsh things to say about the tomato meter.
Now, you may remember Ratner from such highly critically acclaimed successes as X-Men: The Last Stand.
Woo!
Yeah, Last Stand.
The Last Stand.
2014's Hercules, which he also directed, and Batman v Superman, which he co-financed and produced.
Let's be fair though. He did actually produce The Revenant, right? Didn't he use some of his dad's money or something on it? Thank you.
Well, thank you for using your dad's money on that one.
That's cool. Yeah,
you can't win them all, but you can win 1 out of 4.
Yeah, I mean, so okay, he broken clock is right twice a day.
Yes.
Yeah. You get him, Brett.
Yeah. So, what exactly is wrong with Rotten Tomatoes from his standpoint? Well, according to Ratner, it destroyed Batman v Superman. The movie didn't destroy it. The ratings destroyed it. And that happens to be destroying movies as a whole.
Oh boy. Yeah, Ratner said to Entertainment Weekly, quote, "The worst thing," I should do it in his voice, "the worst thing that we have in today's movie culture is Rotten Tomatoes. I think it's the destruction of our business." That's actually what he sounds like. It's not a racial stereotype.
Ratner went on to say, and I can't do the voice.
I'll do it again. "Now it's about a number. A compounded number of how many positives versus negatives. Now it's about what's your Rotten Tomato score. And that's sad." It's getting worse as I do the accent longer.
No, it's getting better.
Okay. Because the Rotten Tomato score was so low on Batman v Superman, I think it put a cloud over a movie that was incredibly successful.
Incredibly successful.
I mean, by China standards, yes.
Now, Ratner is probably referring to Batman v Superman's not-so-hot Rotten Tomatoes score, which clocked in around 27% after everyone had processed all the grimness and the Martha shouting and everything. Right. Despite that score, Batman v Superman went on to pull in nearly $900 million, so it didn't exactly fail, although reports stated that Warner Brothers was hoping for revenues well over $1 billion at the very least.
We call that failing upwards here in the entertainment industry, and Warner Brothers is doing it well. Since he was one of the guys fronting the money for it, he probably feels like it could have and maybe should have made a little more.
Why didn't you make $1 billion?
Yeah, so close. Beat
so
Avatar.
Disappointed. The producer went on to criticize Rotten Tomatoes some more, saying that it's created an environment where people assume something sucks because it has a low score, which, yes, that's the general idea, that if it isn't getting reviewed well, it's probably not very good, which doesn't mean that people can't like it.
Yeah.
You can like whatever you want. I like a ton of terrible movies. It just doesn't necessarily mean that they're the best put together cinematic accomplishments.
Right, especially when other people are trying to tell you that they're good, but sometimes it's nice to have someone tell you that sucks. Anyway, Ratner went on to say, "But that number is an aggregate and one that nobody can figure out exactly what it means." Now it's JFK. "And it's not always correct. I've seen some great movies with really abysmal Rotten Tomato scores. What's sad is the film criticism has disappeared. It's really sad."
Isn't the problem that he's having with it that the criticism hasn't disappeared? So who is Rotten Tomatoes to say what math is? I mean, naturally, Rotten Tomatoes had some fighting words ready for Ratner in response.
Nice.
Jeff Forrest, vice president of Rotten Tomatoes, defending his company by saying,
"Do the voice."
Oh no,
Is this like...
I don't know his voice, so we'll just, "At Rotten Tomatoes, we completely agree that film criticism is valuable and important."
Is he a villain?
Maybe. Shut up.
Right.
"And we're making it easier than it has ever been for fans to access potentially hundreds of professional reviews for a given film or TV show in one place."
He went on to say,
"The Tomatometer score, which is the percentage of positive reviews published by professional critics, has become a useful decision-making tool for fans. But we believe it's just a starting point for them to begin discussing, debating, and sharing their own opinions."
So brave. So anybody?
Real courage.
I wasn't listening. So this isn't the first time that someone has gotten into a pickle fight with Rotten Tomatoes.
Pickle fights are
I
delicious.
just call it pickle fights. Even much better directors than Brett Ratner have ripped the aggregator in the past.
A few years ago, David Cronenberg, director of movies like The Fly and A History of Violence, said that Rotten Tomatoes was wrecking film criticism. He told CNBC that on sites like Rotten Tomatoes, you have critics and then you have top critics. And what that really means is that there are legitimate critics who have actually paid their dues and worked hard and are in a legitimate website. Then there are all these other people who just say they're critics and you read their writing and they can't write, or they can write and their writing reveals that they're quite stupid and ignorant.
So in the end, sites like Rotten Tomatoes, Cronenberg said, dilute the voice of legitimate critics by mixing in a lot of inferior voices. Ouch.
But pretty much everyone agrees that Rotten Tomatoes, like it or not, is kind of a big deal in Hollywood.
Most people look at it. In an interview with The Wrap, one movie executive said that studios pay attention to a movie score because viewers do. Makes sense. Nowadays, the executive said, people don't want to read 40 reviews, so in less than 60 seconds, you can get a sense that 80% of the critics thought this movie was good, or not.
Yeah, it's actually been a similar situation too when it comes to games, which we see a lot. While a site like Metacritic is popular, and in some cases developer bonuses are based off Metacritic scores, some have criticized its effect on the industry, which has been significant.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's pretty guilty of just going to IGN or something and just skipping to the end, right? And just,
Right.
Give me the score, give me the bullet points. I
There
can't
are 5
read.
pages, all you want's the number, and just go, huh.
Yeah.
And then you get mad at the number.
Yeah, exactly, and you don't know why. It's safe to say that a game's Metacritic score matters a lot, and not just to the fans.
Nope.
Yeah.
Metacritic influences the sales of games and the stocks of video game publishers, the Wall Street Journal has reported. And Microsoft in 2008 even began using Metacritic averages to delist underperforming Xbox Live Arcade games. Why would you need to delist them? But
Seems odd.
they did.
As a result of all that influence, Metacritic has attracted its share of controversy as well. People have raised questions about how Metacritic assigns numerical scores to reviews and which reviewers it chooses to include. Some publications like Kotaku and Eurogamer have even stopped giving numerical reviews, possibly in response to the being used by Metacritic.
Right, and it goes back to that skipping everything down to the number. They actually want you to pay attention to what they're saying and not just the overall impression.
And then, surprise, those websites don't get as much traffic.
Right. So the jury is somewhat split on the positives and negatives provided by these kinds of aggregators. But some would argue that the positives do outweigh the negatives since we're looking at an environment where criticism and quality, or lack thereof, are more readily available to the average consumer. Naturally, certain business types are going to view that as a bad thing.
Ratner and others do raise an interesting question, however, about the quality of discourse surrounding film criticism or criticism of any medium, really. We've seen a number of instances in recent months where the views of critics and consumers don't necessarily align.
Right, that was actually the case with Marvel's Iron Fist, which we reported on a little bit earlier here, which was curb stomped by critics, but met with a better response by actual fans of the show. They didn't necessarily love it, but the feeling is that the critics might have been a little bit off base with that whole 18% rating. The same idea has also sprung up around recent video games like Mass Effect Andromeda and Breath of the Wild, the reviews of which were met with opposition on both ends of the spectrum.
And for some, these instances and others are creating a distrust in critics and reviewers. Another aggregator, OpenCritic, recently did a user survey of what gamers consider to be the most trustworthy review sites, and the results are probably different than what you might expect.
Yeah, but all that is a much deeper discussion probably than what Brent Ratner is doing, blaming a review site for his poorly reviewed movie getting reviewed poorly.
Right. Anyway, so what do you guys think? Ratner and others blaming review aggregator sites for ruining movies? Let us know in the comments, please.
And for future updates from the depths of Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic, the very deep depths, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the Know.
Bye. No, please. Please. That's for Brett Ratner. It's fantastic.
Am I making you nervous?
A little bit.
Are you judging?
Eat a dick.
Quietly.
Loudly.
This is a dick library.